Hey yo, everyone! The past few years, more and more video game remakes have been releasing. Unlike remakes of movies or TV shows, video game remakes actually make sense? With how young the video game industry is, a lot of the iconic blockbusters of the 90s and 2000s were legendary because of their innovation in gaming. Because of their foundation, modern games are able to improve and expand upon them in so many ways that it's hard to understand why people like the original. But at the time, these games were revolutionary, even if they don't feel that way in 2024. With how long it takes to develop new games, maybe it's okay to revisit some of these old classics that are in need of some love. You know, something to hold us over while we wait for the next big installment. So today, I want to talk about some of these legendary games and why I believe they are deserving of a modern day remake. Some of these games could probably just use a nice little remaster, but for the sake of the video, I'm saying give us a full remake. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Alright, let's get it. Okay, so sorry for the long intro, but before we begin, I just want to go over this one more time. By saying these games need a remake or remaster or whatever you want to call it, I'm not saying that the original ones are bad. I'm just saying that they could use a modern day cleanup to really make the most of what was originally there. And not all of these games truly need a re-release. Some of them I think would just benefit greatly from it. Whether it be cleaning up some old glitches and bugs from the original or getting fans excited for whatever's next in the franchise. There are a lot of reasons to be excited for a remake or remaster, if done correctly. Anyway, at number 10, I got Super Mario 64. I can't even begin to tell you guys how much this game means to me. This was the first video game I was ever given, and I played the ever-living crap out of it on my old beat-up Nintendo 64. At the time, it was revolutionary. It was truly a massive jump, pun intended, for 3D platformers. This game is one of the best success stories out there of a franchise making the transition from 2D to 3D. Sure, the graphics weren't ultra realistic in any way, but it looked pretty damn good. With a multitude of worlds to explore and unique levels in each world, Super Mario 64 is a juggernaut of fun, and believe it or not, one of the most influential titles of all time. And I'm not just saying that because I love this game. This one was truly a trailblazer for 3D gaming. A lot of the basic things we see today in modern games is because Super Mario 64 worked out so well. So due to its legacy and because I really want it, I think that Super Mario 64 is deserving of a remake. I think it's just old enough where a remaster might not be able to cover everything I'd like to see updated. That being said, the level design still holds up incredibly well for the most part. It's just the graphics and camera controls could really use some work. I mean, even as a kid, I knew the camera movement sucked in this game. It was so frustrating. If we're able to clean up some of these polygons and give it a movement makeover similar to that of Super Mario Odyssey, I would freaking cry. Everything else is basically perfect, so please don't muck it up. For a game this important to the history of video games, it deserves to be enjoyed by modern audiences. Now moving on to number 9, let's talk about Fallout New Vegas. I cannot believe that this game hasn't had an official remaster yet, much less a remake. Fallout New Vegas is probably the most beloved title in the franchise, and if you've played it, it's easy to understand why. A wide variety of factions to join or fight, memorable NPCs, incredible side quests, and a fantastic main story. To me, this is one of the pioneers when it comes to non-linear storytelling. Not just the amount of storylines to follow, but the quality of them also. There will be times where you'll seriously be questioning your moral values. Because of all the variants with side quests and factions and RPG elements, you can easily replay this game multiple times and end up with a totally different experience and ending on each run. There is just so much going on in this game, in a good way. The map isn't super big, but it is full of depth, which I honestly kind of prefer. New Vegas launched almost 15 years ago in 2010, and even though it was highly praised at the time, and even still today, it could probably use some polishing up. Jumping into the vanilla version of this game in 2024 can be a rough experience for people who have never played New Vegas when it first launched. For one, this game really needs to add sprinting. In an open world RPG, sprinting needs to be there. The overall gameplay is great, but I think New Vegas would really benefit from implementing the Fallout 4 gunplay. And of course, graphics have come a long way since 2010, so I wouldn't mind a little touch up here and there. Other than that though, I don't really want any other changes. This is a game that could definitely squeak by with just a nice remaster if a remake isn't on the table. No need to fully rebuild it though, because honestly, it's that good. Down to number 8, I want to talk about Chrono Trigger. Lately, I've been giving this game a lot of love, and for good reason. This is one of the greatest games of all time, and I would love for it to see some sort of re-release for modern audiences. Honestly, Chrono Trigger doesn't really need much changing. I think it just needs to be more accessible for today's gamers. If you've never played it, Chrono Trigger is a JRPG from the SNES developed by Square. It was considered revolutionary for the way it implemented multiple endings, plot-related side quests, and in-game character development. The plot is super cool, where your character is from this alternate reality Earth and has essentially unlocked time travel. Throughout the game, you visit different eras, such as the Middle Ages and a post-apocalyptic future, completing quests and unlocking more allies. It's a fantastic premise for a game, and the execution was wonderfully done. So in terms of a re-release, I think this game would be a great remake. The story holds up incredibly well, and thanks to its 2D turn-based combat, the gameplay doesn't need much tweaking. Maybe some updated sprites and animations? Since Square has basically mastered that 2D, 3D mashup like Octopath Traveler and Live Alive, I would love to see Chrono Trigger get a similar treatment. Because like I said, for a game this great, it deserves all the love in the world. Now at number 7, I want to talk about the Simpsons Hit and Run. People freaking adore this game. It was like Grand Theft Auto, except your parents would actually buy it for you. This game launched way back in 2003, and although it was definitely a hit, again pun intended, for kids back in the day, it really hasn't aged the best. Now, I never owned this game myself, so I'm just going off of what I can remember from playing on my cousin's PS2 and the reviews online. Like I mentioned earlier, The Simpsons Hit and Run was basically GTA for kids whose parents wouldn't get them actual GTA. That being said, this game was a ton of fun back in the day. The open world was full of items like coins and repair tools to encourage you to drive around and explore. Just like GTA, you could plow through crowds of people or even blow up your car. The main story had something to do with aliens or something? I don't know. The appeal to me as a kid was just running around finding the best cars I could and then doing big jumps. Today in 2024, the game still has a ton of charm to it, but it doesn't really hold up as well. The characters are low polygon, textures aren't very detailed, and the performance of the game is pretty rough, even by PS2 standards. The frame rate drops pretty consistently, so getting a remake in there that cleans up some of the performance would be a godsend. Unfortunately, this game is probably the one least likely to actually get a re-release. Due to licensing issues and the original developer Radical Entertainment being shut down, I'm not sure how/who would get this done. There is a fan-made remake out there that looks freaking incredible, but I don't see that getting any sort of official release anytime soon due to copyright issues. It's a shame because this game has a cult following that I think would play the crap out of a remake. Maybe one day. Now down at number 6, I got Assassin's Creed. Releasing back in 2007, the original Assassin's Creed has got to go down as one of the most important games of the 2000s. I mean, it spawned one of the most profitable gaming franchises of all time. This is where everything began. The hidden blades, the assassinations, the stealth, the open world, the parkour. The template for almost all Assassin's Creed games started right here. Since this game came out over a decade and a half ago, there have been a dozen different Assassin's Creed games. In a lot of ways, the franchise has improved dramatically, but in other ways, I think it's kind of regressed, or at least moved away from the classic stealth-based gameplay, which is why I think a remake of the original Assassin's Creed would be great for us old school fans. I would love to revisit Altair's adventures in the Holy Land, and heck, even see my boy Desmond again. With a complete rebuild of Jerusalem and Damascus, the OG Assassin's Creed would look beautiful on current-gen consoles. The storytelling holds up, so cleaning up some of the graphics and smoothing out some parkour and combat would make this game an instant hit for me. I was hoping Mirage would be a return to form for these older AC games, but since that didn't do particularly well, maybe a remake of Altair's adventures would do the trick. I would love to replay this gem with modern gameplay features. Now at number 5, I want to talk about Twisted Metal. I have actually never played any of these games, but with the TV show doing fairly well, I think this franchise is poised to make a comeback. The last Twisted Metal game released back in 2012, so the series has been in hiatus for a while now. I think a remaster of some of the older games would be a great entry point for modern audiences, or even just a nice refresher for OG fans while they wait for the next entry. So basically, Twisted Metal is a demolition derby video game. For the multiplayer part, which is the most popular part, you battle in an arena and can kit out your vehicle with weapons like machine guns and missile launchers by picking them up throughout the map. According to the wiki page here, the game has a storyline similar to that of Mortal Kombat. There is this vehicular combat tournament once a year where the goal is to defeat all opponents and then be granted a wish at the end. It's a little out there, but I kinda like that premise. Like I said earlier, there hasn't been a new game in over a decade, and since the TV show has gained some traction, I think the series could definitely use a new entry. But instead of just raw dogging it and throwing a brand spanking new game out there, maybe Sony can do a remake of the older games to prime up their target audience beforehand. As I said, I've never played any of these games before, so I'd totally be down to check out what all the hype is about. Now at number 4, I got Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. This is another game I haven't played, but while I was researching this topic, I found Chaos Theory to be one that I think would do numbers with a remake. The tricky thing with this one though is that it's a sequel to Pandora Tomorrow. Again, not really a Tom Clancy guy, but if they're able to make Chaos Theory work independently, then I think it would be received with open arms. Okay, so the actual game. Splinter Cell Chaos Theory dropped in March of 2005, and at the time was one of the fastest selling games ever. Chaos Theory has had some of the best stealth mechanics that we've ever seen in a game, even today in 2024. Looking at the wiki page here, there's a feature that monitors Sam's noise level as well as the surrounding sounds, so if he's too loud, it'll make the guards more weary and likely to detect you. They also had cutting edge AI in here, with NPCs interacting with furniture to create cover, detect changes in the environment like if a light has been shut off or if a door is left open, and the ability to use cover fire for other NPCs or even flank you. There's a bunch more in here, but basically, this is some of the best video game AI we've ever seen. Considering this is touted as one of the greatest video games ever released, I think it's about time we get some sort of remake. The game is almost 2 decades old, and even though it has that incredible AI, the gameplay and graphics are beginning to show its age. This game would look great with ray tracing and updated assets. The stealth gameplay is basically perfect, so just tweaking it with minor quality of life fixes would be all that is needed. I think I'm finally beginning to understand why people mourn this franchise so much. Again, I've never played this, but damn, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't interested in a remake. Moving on down to number 3, I have The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. This one is probably the most controversial on my list, simply because there are fans that think this game just doesn't need to be remade. And they could be right, who am I to say? The game originally came out in 1998 for the Nintendo 64 and was the first Zelda game to make the jump to 3D. The word innovative doesn't quite do it justice. When I say that this game was one of the most influential video games of all time, I mean it. This is widely accepted as the greatest video game ever. It even has a Guinness World Record for it. The jump from 2D to 3D was pulled off incredibly well with some of the best writing in any Zelda game. They were able to bring over everything that made the 2D game so iconic. The dungeons, the music, the enemy variety, and the big open levels. Ocarina of Time also introduced the iconic lock-on feature for combat. With all that being said, Ocarina of Time desperately needs a remake. Yes, the original one is great, and there was a 3DS version that released a while ago, but video game mechanics have come so far since 1998. I mean, a lot of that progression is built upon the shoulders of Ocarina of Time, so it just seems fair to me that this game gets the attention it deserves. Let's be honest here. Do you think a modern day gamer would enjoy the original Ocarina of Time? It was made for the Nintendo 64, which means it inherently has an outdated control scheme. Unlike the remake of Link's Awakening, which was a 2D Zelda, Ocarina of Time could really use the benefit of modern 3D mechanics. I forgot where I saw this at, but someone once said that 2D games age like wine, while 3D ones age like milk. Man, that's especially true for these old 3D games that basically pioneered the genre. A remake of Ocarina of Time with updated controls, remade assets, and some quality of life updates like inventory sorting would be an instant Game of the Year contender. Video games have just changed so much since its initial release, and it feels wrong to leave this game behind in the history of legendary titles. I think it deserves at least some sort of remake to show this younger generation just how amazing this game is. Now down to number 2, I have Bioshock. Like Ocarina of Time, there is definitely an argument to be made about why this game doesn't need a remake, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to talk about why I want one anyway. In terms of legacy, Bioshock was a driving factor in the argument that video games should be considered an art form. Full of beautiful, unique environments, innovative gameplay, and a plot twist that will stick with you for a long time, Bioshock is truly one of the all-time greats. It came out in 2007, and it's finally starting to show its age. The story, of course, still holds up, but some of the controls are a bit wonky, and the graphics could use some updating. In the game, you adventure through this retro, futuristic underwater city called Rapture. It's basically a futuristic dystopia where you are constantly being handed these morally complex dilemmas to solve however you choose. The story is one of the all-time greats and deserves to be experienced by everyone. I think a full-on remake for this game would be just what the doctor ordered. Rapture is such a beautiful setting, and rebuilding it from the ground up with ray tracing in mind would put this game on just another level. And then, like everything else on this list, updating the graphics and tweaking some quality of life issues would make this remake a certified home run. Honestly, if you haven't played Bioshock, you should just do it anyway, regardless of whether or not we get a remake. Now finally, at number 1, let's talk about God of War. You can make an argument for basically every other game on this list just needing a remaster, but for me, I want a full remake of the original God of War. The first God of War game I played was the Norse one from 2018, but after playing that game and then Ragnarok, I desperately want a remake of the original. I freaking love Greek mythology, and to play as Kratos through his massacre of the Greek pantheon would be a dream come true. Personally, I would love to see the game remade in a similar style to the newer games, but I would definitely settle for just a straight up remake of the original style. The original God of War released almost 20 years ago in 2005, and with how popular the newer titles are, maybe we can get some sort of remake of the first one so newer fans, such as myself, can experience what Kratos went through before moving to Scandinavia. I mean, they talk about it a lot in the newer games, and after seeing gameplay, I'm already sold. Honestly, I don't care how you do it, Sony, just please give it the respect it deserves, and my money is yours. Okay, really quick, I have an honorable mention in here, GoldenEye 007. I had this game for my Nintendo 64, but truthfully, never really cared that much for it. That being said, this game was a pioneer in first-person shooters. Before GoldenEye, FPSs were basically limited to just PCs, but thanks to the success of the game, companies were shown how to do a first-person shooter without a mouse and keyboard. Like I said, I never really got into this game, and I kind of think that nostalgia is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, but hey, if they remade it, I'm sure people would check it out. But I want to know what you guys think. What game from this list would you like to see get a remake? What games are missing? What's been your favorite remake so far? Dead Space, Resident Evil 4, Final Fantasy 7, or even some other classics like Pokemon Alpha Sapphire or Omega Ruby? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It means a lot. I appreciate you guys as always, and I'll catch you in the next one.